Two humorous nurses would like to acknowledge the true custodians of the land in which we record our podcast, the Yorta Yorta people.
We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders listening today. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
We're so excited for this episode to be sponsored by eNurse. eNurse is Australia's leading one-stop nurse shop. eNurse specialises in everything a nurse or nursing student would need to survive.
From comfortable, stylish and keep you cool under pressure elite hair scrubs to handheld study guides, nursing equipment and even a travel coffee mug for those long commutes.
eNurse will be your new favourite online shop for all things nursing.
Head to www.enurse.com.au and use our code HumorousNurses for a cheeky discount.
Two Humorous Nurses with Kelly and Alicia.
The podcast that won't touch you inappropriately.
Welcome to Two Humorous Nurses, where we plan to bring you funny, informal, conversational chat about all things nursing.
Deep dive time. Kelly has been buried under a million tabs on her laptop and done a deep dive. I love these episodes because I don't have to do anything. I just sit here and listen.
I
should really do one day.
On the public holiday on Monday I came in here at 9:30. I edited the podcast and then I left here at 3:30 after doing this deep dive.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I had a quick break to make Amelia lunch and then I kept going. So,
man, if we got paid by the hour, we'd be doing real good. Well, I mean, you would. I would.
Imagine though.
Right. What have you got?
So I originally came across this story quite a few years ago on a podcast called The Nurse by Camille Bianchi, who is a journalist. So this is a story of James Griffin, a paediatric nurse in Launceston, Tasmania, who's charged with the sexual assault of many children in his care. So we'll just jump straight in because it's a bit of a long one. James Jim Griffin was born in Deloraine, Tasmania on the 14th of August 1950. He's been married twice and separated twice. Already can't read my script. He's got 4 children. He was a type 2 diabetic and suffered from a degenerative spinal injury. He was prescribed oxycodone and Celebrex for his pain and temazepam to help him sleep. That is
the red flags already.
Information we'll need later. Yeah.
Right.
Along with being a nurse of 19 years, he'd worked as a nurse on the Spirit of Tasmania, at the Ashley Detention Centre for Juveniles, and a paediatric ward at the Launceston General Hospital, which is Ward 4K. He was also a medical trainer and masseuse for Netball Australia, helping most weekends with the girls' netball. And he had been a volunteer ambulance in the late 80s when some of the first allegations against him were made. So he's had a great history with children. When this all sort of came about, a colleague of Griffin's said that he was well liked on the ward. However, some staff thought he was creepy. This colleague told the commission, I'm choosing not to use any names. So everybody's names are out there. Of many of the people who made accusations against him and colleagues who came forward, but I'm choosing not to put any names in just because it's not like, I don't think that's something we need to do. So
yeah, sure.
Right. Where was I? So the colleague told the commission that there are occasions where he had witnessed Jim being inappropriate. He'd heard Griffin say to patients, parents of a 5-year-old, that the drug they were giving the child was a date rape drug, and that he rarely followed chaperone policies with female patients. Griffin asked him if his girlfriend was still in school when he thought it was weird given he was 28 years old. And everybody just brushed it off as that's just Jim being Jim. He said the culture on the Ward 4K, the paediatric ward, was one of fear, and that nurses felt their complaints fell on deaf ears. Management will ask if they had brought it up personally with Jim when people had complained. This colleague said that he had made a complaint in 2017 after a group of adolescent female patients told him that Griffin had been giving them advice on boys, telling them what boys like and talking about the breasts of a woman at the hospital. This colleague told the inquiry he emailed the nurse unit manager, who told him to put it in a complaint via the department's reporting system, which he did. And the report... in the report, he requested confidentiality, but he never heard anything back from that. After the complaint was made, Griffin had been moved temporarily to the Ashley Youth Detention Centre. When his colleague asked Griffin why he was leaving Ward 4K, Griffin looked him right in the eyes and responded, "There's nothing but fucking dibber-dobbers on this ward."
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that's 2017. So what has been alleged that he's done, in May of 2019, an adult female came forward to the Tasmanian police and alleged that Griffin abused her when she was 11. He would have been, I think it was 58 at the time. They met through the netball, and at the time, Griffin was interviewed by the police and admitted to the police to criminal sexual misconduct. In October 2019, 4 more women had come forward with allegations against Griffin. These allegations range from the 1980s to 2012. Like, that's such a long time.
In July... And he had such access to them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll hear later, this is what infuriates me so much about these people, is that they just instill themselves into their lives. In July of 2019, Griffith's home was searched by police and a significant amount of child exploitation material was found. Some of the images found in his possession included not only victims who came forward, but other patients from Ward 4K at Launceston General.
Oh.
It's interesting to note that in 2000, so nearly 20 years earlier, a report was made to the police after a person bought a secondhand computer from Griffin and they found explicit photos of minors on the computer. However, at the time, the photos weren't considered inappropriate, so the report was closed and the discs with the photos on them destroyed. And I believe that was reported in New South Wales, and when it was sent to Tasmania, they just brushed it all off, basically. It deemed it not an issue.
I suppose maybe he wasn't on their radar yet either.
Yeah, and maybe in 2000, what was considered child exploitation wasn't what we would consider it now. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder what the content was.
Yeah, it didn't really say.
If it was just pictures of people's children in the hospital. I wonder,
what it was. Yeah. Well, it was enough for someone to think this isn't normal.
Yeah, you're right.
And enough of it to go to the police when you've just bought a secondhand computer from a stranger. The search of Griffin's house also found evidence of his chats online, where he admitted to using antihistamine to sedate his victims when he sexually assaulted them and photographed them.
No.
One of the women that came forward described how Griffin was kissing her and gave her long hugs when she was a patient on Ward 4K. He had also taken her off the ward on coffee dates at times. He told her to keep their relationship a secret, and this didn't raise any alarm bells at the time for her. She just thought he was just doing nice things for her. It wasn't until she heard about other women coming forward that she thought, oh, this is not
That's what he did
right.
to me.
Yeah. She had multiple admissions over a few years, and he was always a nurse. And at first she wasn't concerned with her interactions with him, but one day after she'd had a horse riding accident and had showered herself, she couldn't find her clothes. And so she called the bell, and he carried her back to the bed naked. She was 16 and her clothes were on the bed. Like,
What?
yeah, like he set that up.
That's-
He told her there were no wheelchairs, so he'd have to carry her because she was unable to walk. She was recovering
God.
from a horse riding accident. He also communicated with her via Facebook and gave her his personal phone number so no one would see his name come up on her phone. She said she would often wake to Griffin leaning closely over her whilst in bed, and that once she had a seizure when Griffin was present, and he would remind her that he saved her life that day and he was her hero. She felt she owed him something because of that. No one from the hospital ever questioned her about any of his conduct.
God, I
Get this,
wonder
though.
what the room setup was like too. Like kids' wards that I've worked in have all been almost open. Like
Multiple, yeah.
yeah, like I think one of the places I worked had like 8 beds in one kind of room with all the kids. Like, yeah, it's just I honestly don't know how hard is a 16-year-old to be like, oh, well, this is my nurse, and
well, he's obviously
just
groomed her
leaning
enough
over me to
because she invited him to her wedding.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is what I mean. So Griffin had groomed the hospital staff as well as the children. Many of them have seen inappropriate things that he was doing, but they just brushed it off with that's just Jim. It's just Jim being Jim. He befriended them and made them think of him as a supportive father figure. How can you be that person and be so evil at the time? I thought he was genuine, said one of the nurses on the condition of anonymity. He groomed a lot of us. I think he showed a different side of himself to other people. He also was seen to help a lot of troubled kids from troubled families, so really vulnerable kids that probably don't have people looking out for them as well. He would take them
they're probably
into
quite
his
vulnerable.
home. Yeah, take them on trips.
Oh God.
Yeah, he really overstepped that mark of nurse. Yeah. And
I feel like not enough credit is given to people's intuition either. Like, I think anyone that I've ever thought, like when you're telling this story, like there was something that happened to me as a teenager. I went and visited a friend's grandpa whose wife had just died. And so we just went because we were visiting my grandparents, and then we went and visited her grandpa. And it turned out that he was like, I don't know what the real term is, but like a peeping Tom. Like he had a one-way mirror in his bathroom.
Oh,
and
yeah,
he could
told
see
me
us.
about this. That's so scary.
And so, but my vibe when I first met him, and my friend said to me, and this was her step grandpa, so he wasn't like her blood relative, but like he'd raised her dad and stuff. And I remember her like forewarning me, saying he's really touchy-feely, but that's just him. And like like the first time I met him, he tried to kiss me on the lips and was like, had his hand all up my back and stuff. And I remember thinking, whoa, like, oh yeah, they told me he was touchy-feely, but this is making me really uncomfortable. And we stayed there at his house for 2 days, like for 2 nights.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
Like, I feel like when your gut is telling you that something is not okay and that someone is giving you that creepy vibe, like go with it. I think like trust your gut unless proven otherwise. Because I wish that in that moment I went, I'm really uncomfortable. I don't want to stay here. But I was like, well, I'm here with my friend. And like, the things you go through as a friend of like, well, no, she's staying here, so I'm comfortable if she's comfortable.
Yeah, that's right.
But if I had
like to say anything. Yeah,
absolutely. And didn't want to deal with the ramifications of like trying to protect myself, I guess. But yeah, and then it wasn't for months that we found out about the mirror, and her parents like had to come and sit down with my family and tell us what had happened, and and I don't think about it a lot, but it gives you like massive trust issues.
Oh, hell yeah.
And that was something that didn't really happen, directly to me. It was just like later I found out that he was probably watching me in the bathroom.
Actually, that's something that one of his victims, when they talked in the podcast about how when she found out there were photographs, that was very upsetting to her.
Yeah.
She's like, it's one thing to be abused and know you were abused even though you weren't conscious during it because he drugged them.
Right.
But to have photos taken, and her sister had also been abused, and she was devastated to think there might be the photos of her sister
Well,
Like she
now I'm
found
like
that very
thinking,
hard.
now
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's never actually occurred to me that there could be photos of me.
Yeah.
Like when the mirror was found, his like his late wife's sister found the mirror because the kids next door were playing at his house with his dog, and they found the mirror and reported it to their parents, who then told the sister-in-law, and she went and saw the mirror and said to him, "You better get rid of that or you're going to prison." So he got rid of it. And so it was never actually like formally reported to the police. And like there's no proof because the only people that saw it were the two kids and the sister-in-law who she won't report it.
No.
So, and now I'm like, oh
Crazy.
my God, there could be photos of me in this old creepy. He's probably dead by now.
Yeah.
Anyway, next creep.
Yeah. An internal review by the Tasmanian police found the first complaint was made against Griffin back in 2009. However, due to a lack of communication between agencies like the Child Services and the police, nothing of it actually came from it.
Of course.
It was reported in a review of the police conduct of this case that there's actually information of potential child abuse by Griffin that was actually received in 2009, 2011, 2013, 2015, and 2019.
Honestly. I hope these victims got a fuckload of money from the government for the police not doing their job properly.
Recently, they weren't even allowed to talk because of Tasmanian laws. Victims weren't allowed to have a voice.
Bloody hell.
The hardest part is that he was really friendly with some of the parents of the victims. So he went camping with everybody. He was well trusted. He was supportive of those who had troubled lives. He'd often have them to sleep over, and this was when the abuse would occur.
Oh my God.
One of the victims met Griffin when a 4K Christmas party. Her mother was also a nurse who worked with Griffin. She believed he started grooming her when she was 14, and they spent a lot of weekends together as he was a family friend. He would introduce her as his special girl. He would offer her back rubs to help her sleep. He would often assault her while others were sleeping in the same room. She said after the first assault, the next morning it was like nothing had happened, and they went about their day with everyone around, and it made her question what had actually happened to her and second guessed.
Oh my God.
And it was whilst they were all in a room watching a movie, he literally abused her in front, like in that area.
God.
With everyone around. Like he was very brazen. It happened again during a family camping trip, and she said that whilst she could tell her mother everything and they were very close, she couldn't tell her this as she and Griffin were such good friends. She came forward when she learned of the others coming forward in 2019 because she felt that there was power in numbers, that one person wouldn't be believed. So she got the courage to come forward. She started by telling her mum what had happened with Griffin. Her mum said that when she finally realised that, yes, it happened, she can remember her crying and screaming. And then she sent a text message to her old friend, Jim, that said, "How dare you, Jim? How fucking dare you? I trusted you. My daughter trusted you. She never told me until now because he's such a nice man and she didn't want to ruin your life. Well, consider it well and truly ruined. Don't bother replying."
Wow.
He replied to her and said, "My life is already ruined. Thank you for your past friendship."
Oh. What about all the lives he's ruined?
I know. Fuck. The victim said she remembers the moment well. Mum was obviously very shocked, and then I think the anger started to come out. Once I told Mum everything happened so quickly, a detective from the police got in touch with me and I had to go and make my statement. 2 weeks later, I got a message from the detective that they said they had charged Jim. In any other Australian jurisdiction, there's no T. Anyway, it's weird. Griffin might have been charged with the rape of a child, but in Tasmania at that time, and it's 2019, the name of the offence that he was charged under was euphemistically titled maintaining a sexual relationship with a younger person under the age of 17 to whom you were not married.
What?
Imagine that.
Have they amended that?
They have amended that, and now
God.
he was it's been changed to repeated sexual abuse of a child.
Good. That's fucked.
Yeah. So I found this in one article, but I couldn't find it in any other article, and they all kept talking about the police report, and I could not find the police report anywhere. I assume you need to have
report?
Police report.
You kept saying police report.
Oh, my tongue's very dry. They're talking about the police charge sheet, and I couldn't find this charge sheet. Obviously, I don't have journalistic access to a lot of these things. I might think of myself as a investigative journalist, but it's not the case. But I did find in one newspaper article that they listed this charge history for what he was charged on in October 2019. But I don't know how accurate it is. I couldn't find anywhere else. But just as an example of how far back his assault went, these are the charges they said he was charged with. So for 1987 to 89, indecent sexual assault of a victim in Youngtown, Tasmania. In 1987 to 1990, 4 times indecent sexual assault of a second victim in Youngtown, Tasmania. In 1988 to 89, indecent sexual assault of a third victim in Youngtown, Tasmania. 2009 to 2013, maintaining a sexual relationship with a younger person under the age of 17 and sexual intercourse with a young person under the age of 17, multiple locations around Tasmania.
It's crazy that they're not saying like that he was drugging them and it was against their will.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I guess that's what sexual assault is, isn't it? I guess there's other factors.
No, isn't it like maintaining a sexual relationship?
Yeah,
or
but
whatever.
that's what the terminology of it was back then.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Like it just seems so unjust.
It seems so like, oh, he was just having sex with a young person under 17.
Yeah, and that they were all for
unconsensual, it. Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2011 to 2012, times 2 indecent sexual assault in South Launceston, Tasmania. 2015, involved with a person under the age of 18 in the production of child exploitation material.
God.
Or child porn. Why don't we just say it? 2015, distributing child exploitation material. 2015, producing child exploitation material. 2016, successfully passed his working with children and vulnerable people check.
Yeah, fucked.
So none of these charges had happened prior. This was like post that, but like good to know that in 2016 he passed his working with children's check. In 2019, possession of child exploitation material. Griffin had once told one of his victims after, like in that year 2019, that he wouldn't spend any time in jail. On October 13, so he's been charged with multiple offences and he was released on bail. Yeah. On October 3rd, he was charged on October 3, released on bail, and October 13, Griffin called his son asking for support. His son went over there, and then when he left the house, Griffin texted him and said, "Can you check on me the next day if you haven't heard anything from me?" The next day, his son returned to the father's house after no reply from text and found him unresponsive in the chair in his living room.
Oh my God.
He was taken to Launceston General Hospital and he died on the 18th of October. I did read his coroner's report, and it stated that there were no anatomical causes of death and no signs of injury. Blood tests showed fatal doses of oxycodone as well as doxylamine, which is the antihistamine used for insomnia and also the drug he used to drug his victims.
Of course.
Temazepam and naloxone.
He took naloxone
because
he was probably on Tarzan.
Yeah, well, I was on oxycodone and it must have been part of the oxycodone. Yeah, like Tarzan.
Yeah.
It was noted that on his dining room table, all his affairs were in order, including his will, some bills, a family photo albums, envelopes for family members that contain cash, and letters with requests and directions associated with the administration of his estate.
I hope that, like, what?
His death was deemed a suicide. The
Yeah,
death.
I've just Googled a picture of him.
Oh, he looks like just an everyday old man.
He just
a
looks
little
like
creepy though.
every
now we
dad
know
I've
his
ever
story.
seen.
Yeah.
Okay?
I said he looks like a little old man, but now we know his story. He looks creepy.
Terrifying. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, there's a photo of him smiling, like he looks lovely and friendly, and you could just see how people could. I mean, not to judge a book by its cover, but like, you wouldn't think looking at him that he's evil.
I mean, we've all worked with that older nurse in their 60s, older male nurse in their 60s who just hang out and sometimes say inappropriate things, and we're like, oh, they're just old. Like,
and I used to work with a male nurse on kids ward, and like wrongly, while you've been saying all this stuff, I've been picturing him like in but I know that it's not him, but and he like is genuinely so lovely, and I think, how would I feel if something came out about him? Like, not that he, and then I say not that he would, but that's probably what people would have said about Jim. But you just don't, and I'm sure that, and I'm sure, as we know, there are female nurses out there who do fucked up shit.
Oh my God, but, of course.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a hard one to digest.
And I think the fact that he got away with it for so long, but people did report it. I'll keep going a little bit because I
think just because he was so invested in people's families, and he's like committed to the cause. Yes.
And he did like netball, and he was like a trainer there, and so you can imagine what he was doing, like that. And
he had his own kid,
the coach Larry Nasser, with the American like gymnastics team. Like, he was probably massaging them in front of their mothers in a not a good way.
Are you getting sweaty armpits or sweaty balls walking to work in your scrubs? Well, every nurse needs a pair of scrubs that are breathable, super comfy, and not clingy.
Elite Care was designed by a nurse for nurses. They're 55% cotton blend, so they're cool and comfortable, durable, and have plenty of pockets. And when I say plenty, I mean like plenty. Pen loops, chest loops, everything for like your glasses, your name tags, and they have heaps of different designs. They're size inclusive up to a 5XL and have great colours.
Enos have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, free shipping on orders over $150, and are packed within 48 hours of ordering. And they literally have everything you could ever need to do your job.
Head to www.enurse.com.au to check out their whole range of Elite Care scrubs. Don't forget our code Humorous Nurses for a cheeky discount.
Enos loves our nurses. Anyway, his death has left his victims very upset that they won't get their day in court. They're frustrated that the system failed them. They want to know why he wasn't held in jail. Camille Bianchi, who's the host of the Nurse podcast, she basically has said that the suicide was a big fuck you to the victims and the whole process.
Yeah.
He took the easy way out. He deprived his victims of their day in court and the chance to look their predator in the face and say, this is how you hurt me. These people, the ones he hurt as children, the ones who came forward and reported him to the police, were just beginning to find their voice and agency again. They had waited years. They wanted answers, but he was released by the courts without adequate supervision, and now they will never get justice. There will be no answers, no resolution, no validation of their suffering. When he died, the cogs of justice just creaked to a halt. It was case closed. Comparing Griffin's death to the alleged suicide of infamous pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, Bianchi said she was determined to make a podcast to give the survivors their chance to be heard. He got to choose his way out. He got to have power over the outcome, which is, once again, power over his victims too. If you listen to the podcast, she actually, quite a few of the victims and the mother that was the nurse is on.
Oh, wow.
I don't think they speak directly. They have used actors, but they are part of the podcast. And it really does. It's a great podcast, actually. And Camille, she has a great voice to listen to, probably better than mine. But I listened to it such a long time ago, and I sort of went back and listened to a couple of episodes, last week. And no one talked about it. It wasn't out there. This man actually had done an article in the ANMF a few years prior about his dad being a war veteran. Like he inserted himself in so many areas and he groomed so many people, including these children, you know, parents. And whilst he wasn't assaulting young kids, he was assaulting teenagers. It doesn't really matter. He was using his privilege of power to
his sick advantage.
Yeah.
I wonder, so he sends his son a message saying, check on me tomorrow if you don't hear from me, aka I'm probably going to top myself or someone's going to top me.
And
right?
he told someone he won't go to jail, he'd rather kill himself. And he does.
And this is the thing, like, what I want to know, what did the son do with that information? Like,
well, he went home. He texted him the next day. He didn't get a response. He went back and found him dead.
Yeah, that's fucked. Like, I mean, he probably sitting there thinking, well, you deserve to die. You can't. But you can beat that out if you want. But I feel like his son should have reported that to someone, at least told his lawyer, or like tell the police, and my dad's going to kill himself, so like you need to
unless he's
go
also
and get
thinking, I'll just let him do it. It's
then
the
I'll
easy
get some
way
money
out. It's quiet. No, like his name won't be smeared everywhere, because outside of Launceston, this wasn't very well
publicized. When did we ever see it on the news 4 years ago? I don't think so.
No. And Camille, the podcast host, she was saying how little it was investigated, because Launceston is a small town, has small town vibes, and no one investigated it because it was too difficult to do.
What?
Also, the hospital wasn't very cooperative with the investigation. And a lot of people were too scared to come forward, worried it might cost them their jobs. There was a lot of cover-ups, and the 2022 commission, it was noted that only 17% of healthcare workers at LGH, or Launceston General Hospital, had a working with vulnerable persons and children's check. Jesus. 17%. It's supposed to be 100%. The general medical director of the Launceston General Hospital couldn't tell the commission if they had been any marked changes to the systems and processes at the hospital following the information of Griffin's offending. One of the colleagues that submitted the complaint that we talked about earlier, which had gone unanswered, he actually went and copied out his complaint, because after, like, once the news of Griffin's charges and subsequent death became public, because he'd heard reports through the hospital that they were deleting reports and complaints. So he wanted a copy of his own.
And this is the thing with hospitals like that, like they're self-governing in a way.
Yeah.
Like, they are governed, overarchingly by the NSQHS or whatever, and the commission. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like when you do a VIMS or when you do an incident report, it goes to your manager. Your manager's got a choice as to whether that goes further, unless it's like a severe event. And then where does it go? Like, okay, yeah, you might see some journal entries and whatever. But if it's like something serious, or if you put in a serious complaint, like if people are immoral, they can do what they like with it when they see it. Like I feel like, in this instance, like, yeah, they could well and truly delete things because it makes them culpable if they knew about it and did nothing. Like, it essentially is just burying evidence, isn't it? And I'm sure that, like, it's not the first time a hospital has done that. Like,
look at that Dr. Death in Queensland.
And Redonda Vort, like the hospital buried stuff there too. Like everyone
we've ever covered.
and until recently, like, I was very trusting, when you submit stuff. But now I take copies of absolutely fucking everything, because
everything.
Everything.
And I email everything. Yeah. Bianchi reached out to the to APRA to see if they had actually received any complaints about Griffin, but and to see if they'd actually had done anything prior to this. But I don't actually know the outcome of that, and I unfortunately can't go back and listen because the Nurses podcast has been pulled off the air. What? Because at the moment, until the Royal Commission is complete, because there's currently a Royal Commission into it, and the final report for that Royal Commission is due in May 2023. Right. There are 2 seasons of it. So this, I haven't really gone into depth of what he's done. It's really just a bit of just the gist of this bloke that no one's ever heard about 3 or 4 years ago in our country, being a predator in a pediatric hospital. But I do feel like those poor victims involved, they really, Tasmanian law, like until recently, they had it was like they're not allowed to speak their story. Like, that's what that Grace Tame was saying. They fought really hard so they could have a voice and they could speak out, because it was all about protecting, the person being accused.
Yeah.
But it's
But at the end of the day, if you've got that many women coming forward, or you've got that many, people coming forward saying this person assaulted me, this person molested me, whatever it is, like, I think unless it's like a he said, she said kind of story, which again, like, believe the friggin' victim. But like, I don't understand the notion of like protecting the identity of this alleged, serial pedophile. Like, I really like, okay, innocent until proven guilty, but like, why is it that pedophiles are being protected, but people who are involved in, car accidents that result in people being injured or being killed, their identity is like, you're guilty until proven innocent, like, and their identity is not protected, but they're not assaulting children. Like,
no, I know, it's so backwards, isn't it?
It's so backwards.
The process that the victims have to go through again post. I mean, they've already been molested and assaulted and made, and they're like, children, and then they have to stand up and do it again and be questioned about were they asking for it? Is this and that whole thing they have to go through in court is just, why did you wait so long to talk? Yeah, I don't know, because who's going to believe me over a nurse?
There needs to be almost some sort of law like that victims of sexual crimes shouldn't be cross-examined, like, especially like by the defense's lawyer. Like, let them be examined, let them be questioned by their own lawyer. Like, in front of the court. I don't know how they will ever do it in a fair way. It's just like, this is why people don't come forward, because it's fucking traumatizing. Like you were saying about this girl who told her mum, and then how quickly it unraveled. Like, imagine telling your mum and then going, fuck, now I've got to tell all these other people. And like, now my name's going to be out there, and I'm going to have to go and deal with this. And if court takes 2 years, I'm going to be battling with this again for 2 years when it took me this long to get over it. Like, you can totally see why people don't come forward, because it's too hard basket.
And then in their case, they come forward, they tell their story, he gets charged, he kills himself. Done. It's over.
Well, what good did that do?
How is it over? Like, there's no.
He hasn't had to face his crime. The only way that it's benefiting anyone is that he's not around to molest anyone else.
No, and you stop that.
Yeah.
Like, you stop that cycle.
Yeah.
But someone could have stopped that cycle maybe back in 2000 if the police had listened.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is the thing that, I don't know. And I think the power that we have as nurses as being one of the trusted professions is outrageous. I mean, that's what we talk about in all our Nurses Who Kill episodes as it is. Like, this is just a different thing that you just, who would have thought?
Yeah. I think sometimes the Americans get it really, really wrong in the justice system, but then I think sometimes they get it really right. Like,
and they penalise the fuck out of them. They go to jail for 150 years. Yeah.
Well, and also, like, this just reminds me a little bit of, like, I've been obsessed. Oh, there's something wrong with me, but I'm obsessed with, like, kidnappings. Ooh. Like, I know it's fucked up. And, like, the Madeleine McCann thing, like, I spent months, like, researching that. Anyway, and then JC Lee Dugard, who went missing somewhere in the South, in America, somewhere there. And she was kidnapped when she was walking to school or to the bus stop or something. And then she lived with her captor and his wife and then her 2 children that she had by him for 18 years. And the cops, and he was a convicted child sex offender. And the cops used to come and visit him because he was, like, on supervision, and they would come and visit him in the home, and she was living in a shed, like in a tent city in the backyard with her 2 children that she'd home birthed at 13 and 15. And, like, nothing. They never once stepped in the house. They never once looked in the backyard. And when she was finally rescued because of a female cop who looked at him and then looked at one of the young girls and went, they have the same eyes. There's something not right. He's a child sex offender who's like loopy as a lizard. And anyway, so she ended up, this is a whole different story. Anyway, she's the reason that JC was found. But the point of the story is JC and her family ended up suing the government because the cops failed to do their job correctly. And she got millions in settlement because this poor girl was kidnapped.
Yeah.
And he was a known sex offender who lived in her neighborhood. Like, if any of the cops had walked into the backyard at any point during his parole, which was like, must have been the entire time because he was already a sex offender when he kidnapped her. Like, if at any point in that 18 years a cop had gone into the backyard, they would have found her. Yeah. And so, she got awarded millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I feel really sad for the victims in this case because not only have they not been able to tell their story publicly, shame this fucking human and, get some level of closure, like they're not going to be compensated in any way.
There's no victim of crime if there's no crime.
He should have got his affairs in order and said my estate goes to all of the people that I assaulted.
I mean, he obviously doesn't give a fuck about them, does he?
No, but this is the thing. How can you live this way? And honestly, like, he's making friends with his colleagues and spending time on the weekend. The only people I spend time with is like you, like from work, really, and the girls. But like, I don't know. If one of the guys at my work was like, want to come camping, I'd be like, fuck no. Like, he's spent so much time, so much energy getting to know these people, getting to know their families,
literally grooming them.
And so committed.
So committed.
Like,
yep.
Imagine how many he would have on the go at once. So fucked.
I mean, in the podcast, they go
life.
way more in depth. Like, they talk about, people have walked into the room and, he's been in very inappropriate situations with patients and, not using the chaperone policy when you're with a female patient and doing procedures. And, there were many nurses that sort of had said, I wish I'd said something, but I didn't think, the child wasn't upset or there wasn't, I just thought, oh, that's just Jim. Like that's just Jim. It's like that bitch of a nurse that's mean to the students. You'd be like, oh, that's just, Karen. Like, but no one ever calls her out on it. It says, stop being such a bitch to the nursing students, you old buddy bat. But like, no one said to Jim, stop touching them or stop hugging them or, don't take them out for coffee or don't take them home for the weekend.
I tell you what, the gist of this is just some people need to grow some fucking balls too. Hey, like, I feel like there's too much. There's too much of this in the nursing culture of like, don't ask, don't tell, don't say anything. Like, taking shit is in the nurse's job description, whatever. Like, I feel like from day dot, well, almost from day dot, I have been like, and another person that came in my mind while you were telling us about Jim was that guy that stalked me when I was a grad. And I knew, mega fucking creepy. And there were lots of times where I told him to stop, but I was never assertive enough to be like, you are making me extremely uncomfortable. Enough's enough, or I'll be reporting you. Like, I never did that.
Yeah.
And
that's very hard to do, though.
Yeah, of course, especially when you're supposed to be caring for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, like, if that was me now, I would totally do it because I'm a lot more.
No one would stalk you now, though, because you're too scary, because you would do that. Nah. I just think
I'm too scary. I'm too intimidating now.
Yeah, you just.
Before then, I was just like head down, bum up. Now I'm bum down, head up.
Anyway, that was just a little insight into it. I do recommend listening to the podcast when it comes back.
I'm relieved this wasn't as triggering as I thought it was going to be.
No, I really didn't go too in depth with well, I might have if I could have listened to the podcast.
I was going to say, this is a lot better. You doing this is a lot better than me doing this because I'm like, I get analysis paralysis and I need every detail and I have to know every piece of information.
Yeah.
And then share that with the world. And that's sometimes too much.
Listening to the Lucy Letby trial podcast, and
we've had a few listeners
Lots.
recommend that we cover it.
And I think we will cover it, but I tell
Yeah.
you what, until I started listening to the podcast, now I understand she is a NICU nurse. I get that. I know what the NICU is. My child was in a NICU. I fully understand it. Until I listened to the podcast and I heard that the first victim was born 10 weeks premature, I was like, fuck, she's killing premature babies. Like I hadn't put two and two together, and I listened to it while I've been listening to it in the morning while I make my child's lunch. And honestly, I was
crying over a Vegemite sandwich.
I mean, I didn't ham and beetroot. I didn't cry, but it's very interesting. And I'm only on baby E, and it goes all the way to baby Q.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
And I'm interested to see the culpability of the hospital once again. How
only one hospital?
How much they've missed. How I want to
Terrifying.
see that. Yeah, and I think I'll cover it, but I'm going to need a bit of time to process it, and I think we need to make sure everybody's ready for it. Anyway,
well, thanks, Kelly.
I hope it was good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I mean, I didn't enjoy it, but I think I don't know. I feel like when we do these episodes, it just gives you that bit more perspective. I don't know. It makes you think that. I don't know, it makes you realize that I don't know. There's arseholes out there who are just out for themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're in the nursing community as well.
Sadly, they are.
And hold your hospital accountable if you're reporting something like this. Nag them. Continue. They can't sack you for reporting something.
Ask for an outcome. And if you don't hear anything and you really, truly suspect something, go to APRA. And
contact your union. Get them involved, because if you're making a complaint about something that's serious like this, and you're worried about your own protection, there are laws protecting you. And although
exactly right.
In this case, that guy obviously or the colleague reported it, and then Jim must have found out about that. So again, that's more ammo that you can take to the union and take to APRA and go, well, actually, the whistleblower policy, you've blown the whistle and you haven't been protected. So there's another thing that the hospital is then accountable for. I think definitely keep them accountable. Ask for an outcome. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we're there for the patients. And if you're witnessing things that are inappropriate or not acceptable, it's your duty to report it, because
that's exactly right. It is our duty. It's our duty of care, and a lot of the time that even if it is someone that you trust and you like, if you see something, your eyes generally don't deceive you.
No.
And or broach it with them straight away. That's very difficult. I fully appreciate
it is.
that.
And,
that is
and I
super
think
difficult,
when you brought
especially if
that
they're
up,
more senior than you.
Oh, yeah. And when you brought that up about management turning around and saying, well, have you brought that up with Jim? There's a point where you can't. There's a point where and that's the problem, I think, with modern day management, is very much putting the accountability back on the staff member who's making the complaint, because management don't want to deal with complaints all the time, which is fine, because I think if it's something like a disagreement or whatever, if I can deal with that yourself. But
not a
but not
complaint.
When you're reporting sexual assault or inappropriate conduct with patients. You should not, that should not be your responsibility to address with him. That's a management issue. So, and put that on management, that actually it's not your responsibility to performance manage him. So that's their responsibility, and to investigate the allegations that you're making, and definitely put things in writing, because nothing gets done if it's verbal.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I have to say about that.
Yes, sounds good.
It's coming from someone who's made a lot of complaints over the years.
Oh my God.
Not a lot, a few.
Thank you for listening to my little TED Talk.
Thank you for holding it.
5-star review on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. And Instagram us at 2 Humorous Nurses Podcast.
And you can send us an email, hello@twohumorousnurses.com. That's humorous like the bone. HUMERUS.
Yes. Bye.